Thank you, MC. How is everybody tonight?
We are fantastic.
Can we have some excitement in the house?
Hallelujah.
All right. Today we're going to talk about basically two of my favorite characters in the Bible. The first one is Jesus. And the second one is almost like Jesus, in my opinion. But I don't want to start with just that yet. We are going to start tonight by reminding ourselves that we are now in the month of success through stubborn faith. Okay? So before I even start talking, we are talking about success. And the way we get to success is by stubborn faith. So let's review. What is success? Success is when we reach a purpose. So first of all, we have to have one. Okay? To be able to be successful, we have to have a purpose. Stubborn, it's nice description I have here. Having or showing dogged determination not to change one's attitude or position on something, especially in spite of good arguments or reasons to do so. So when we are stubborn, I think mostly to other people, correct? So we don't see ourselves stubborn, we just see like pursuing our goals. And maybe some other people say, well, but you shouldn't be doing this because all the facts are leading into different direction. And we go, I don't really know what you're talking about. So stay with me on this part. And then the last one is faith, which is described as complete trust or confidence in someone or something. All right. So this is so much fun. So my introduction goes like this. What is stubborn faith to the world? Okay. So we imagine that the world is watching stubborn faith. However, it is completely logical and normal to people who believe in God's promises. Wouldn't you agree? So if you look at the Bible, how many miracles were performed, how many signs were made, how many incredible things were done, we look at these people and say they were stubbornly faithful. Because to us, who sometimes lack faith, who lack conviction, who lack maybe something to be able fully to charge ahead, it looks like it's somebody stubborn, but in reality, in their world, they're not stubborn. They're just basically reacting to something that God said and following his lead. However, in all this said and done, God knows we have many temptations and that the world will try to undermine whatever his teachings are and will set us traps. Okay? So constantly throughout the Bible, we have to be reminded of God's work and God's promises. And today, we're going to do something amazing. So today we're gonna finish with a bit of neuro-linguistic programming for all of us to constantly keep God's promises in our minds and into our hearts, whatever the challenge is. First of all, I want to try and remind us of what was God's promise originally. So if you go with me to Genesis 15, chapter 15, God says this to Abraham. On the day the Lord made a covenant with Abram saying, so he's still Abram, he's not Abraham, saying, to your offspring I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, and so on. So he gives him all this land. Was Abraham the owner of this land? No. But he says, to you and your people. So Abraham goes, me and what people? I don't even have any kids. God, what's happening? And God says, no. You will populate the world. And then later in Genesis 22, he says, because then later Abraham proves his allegiance. He proves his faithfulness. So God reinstates his promise. He tells him again, no. Everything that you ever wanted, everything that a person at that age would ever want would be security and would be prosperity, would be inheritance, would a legacy to leave to his children. So God says, because you have not withheld your son, Okay, he says here, because you have not withheld your son, Genesis 22, verses 16 to 17, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashores. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. And through your offspring, all nations, Jesus moment, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Wow. All right. And we still have just Abraham and we have Isaac. Yes, we have Ishmael, but now we're talking about the descendants through Isaac. So those of us who are paying attention and who know what God can do and who has proven so many different ways that he can do it, we say, yeah, okay, God has promised this to us. Now we go through some more of Genesis where he makes another promise to Isaac. Again, he tells him, to your offspring, I will give these lands. And then we have a little bit of detour because the people of Israel go to Egypt, are enslaved, and then God chooses Moses to bring them out of Egypt and take them into the promised land. Now, which promised land was that? We just talked about it, Genesis 15, Genesis 22, and Genesis 26. We're talking about the promised land. Now, what is the concept of the promised land? The promised land is something that God has given to his people, all right? So it's not something that is not ours to take. So if we look at us right now spiritually, these are the promises that God has made to us through Jesus Christ, correctly? So these are the promises he's made. He says, this is yours, you just have to take it. Now, we know that to get the people out of Egypt, God performs a lot of miracles, a lot of signs through Moses and with the help of Aaron. And he takes all this mass of Israelites ahead of pursuing Egyptian army. Imagine this, women, children, young people, old people, fighting people, everybody is fleeing. Everybody is now fleeing Egypt. Why are they fleeing? Well, because Moses said, we're going to go. And God said, we're going to go. And people said, okay, we're going to go. So they left. At the same time, they plundered Egyptians. They took all their goods with them. I mean, it was a huge thing. It's called Exodus. It's called Exodus because it was a big thing. All right. So obviously people had to demonstrate some kind of faith, but was it faith by illogical belief? No, I mean, there were signs and wonders. I mean, you would have to be pretty dumb, I say, okay, so to not realize something big is happening here, especially when, for instance, all the firstborn died or the you know, all the big signs. Go read your Bible. So all this mass of people now crosses the Red Sea, imagine, crosses the Red Sea, and they go towards the promised land. And they come from the land of Canaan. And you would think, yeah, everybody's so excited, you know, God is doing such a great job. Everybody's listening to Moses, no trouble, but no. So Moses is keeping his faith. Aaron is keeping his faith. Miriam is keeping his faith, right? Until they are not. So they have a little bit of internal thing going on, even before they sent the spies from the 12 tribes into the Canaan. Now, this is something interesting happens. So God says, send scouts into the land so you can see what's what, and, you know, because I have promised you this land of milk and honey. So they send in the spies, and the spies go out for 40 days. 40 days, this is very important, 40. This number, we're gonna hear about it more, 40 days. And just to remind ourselves the situation, one of the characters, my favorite character in the story is Joshua, and he's right now about 42 years old. Okay, so he's not 19, he's not 18, he's a grown man. He is the leader of his tribe because they were sending out people at some stature, at some power into these lands to scout them out. They come back, what happens? 10 out of 12 are crying. So they say, yes, it's great, but this is incredible. This land is populated by giants. So if we look at if you look at the story, which is described in Numbers, actually Numbers 13 and 14 in our Bibles, I really suggest you read this thoroughly because it's amazing. Okay, now let's remind ourselves. We just came out of Egypt. We just crossed the Red Sea. We have an angel coming up ahead of us to guard us. All these signs and wonders. And God says, this is the promised land. Go get it. And the people go, oh, but there are some big people there. They're giants. This land will devour us. The number says, devour. Look at the language they're using. Let's go to Numbers. Sorry, I have everything here. So basically, the first they say, we even saw descendants of Anak there. So Anakim would be, you know, the big people, the legends of the old. And then Caleb, one of the two people who actually stood up against this general discontent, he said, the Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the people silenced him. So we have Caleb and we have Joshua against huge crowd of people, grumbling, crying, protesting. Okay? So they said, the other 10 men says, no, we cannot attack these people. They're stronger than we are. The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. We seem like grasshoppers to their lives. So that night, all members of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. Oh, now they started to cry. What happened? Now, this is very, very interesting passage, because to us right now, reading back, we go, why did they behave this way? We really don't understand, right? They should keep faith. But they're saying, oh, if only we had died in Egypt or in this wilderness. And they'll get their wish. All in this wilderness, why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? They say, and they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. And then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. So what do Moses and Aaron do? They don't stand up and say, no, what are you talking about? No, they go, oh, don't do anything to us. Or, you know, it's who speaks up? It's Joshua. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly. There were about 2 million people there. So 2 of these guys kept their faith. They knew people were not happy. It didn't matter. And said to the entire Israelite assembly, the land we passed through and explored it is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, okay, so he promised us, he will lead us into the land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. They're like, duh. You know, I mean, Caleb before said, we can do this. And Joshua says, we can do this. We don't understand. What's wrong with you people? And they said, the only thing you have to do not rebel against the Lord. And do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. So remember, the guys from before said, this land devours. But Joshua and Caleb says, no, not the land. We will devour them because God is with us. Remember, so they're going against the whole people with the promise that God has made. But then what the whole assembly does, talks about stoning them. You know, that's what you get for being reasonable, okay? Why? Because everybody else is scared. Why are they scared? I don't know. And then what happens? God intervenes. So if God had not intervened, the people would have stoned, and Caleb and Joshua and who knows what, it would be a complete disaster. So God intervenes. And we know that then God says, because you have done this, you will now have 40 years to think about it. Okay? And after all of you who have now rebelled against me are going to be dead, I will bring your children, the same children that you said I'm sending into slaughter, the same children will inherit this land. All right, so let's stop right here. We are now just going through this story because maybe when we look at this situation, it seems to us, wow, these people really shouldn't be doing this. I mean, come on. But think about yourselves. Let's think about ourselves and our spiritual battles. If you look at the numbers 10 and 12, all right? So I did a little bit of calculation. 2 out of 10 or 2 out of 12 people who were for the Lord is 17%. 83% of people was against, was grumbling and was rebellious. Now, I believe maybe a month ago, we talked about how most of our thoughts are negative thinking. And it accidentally, right, comes to be about 80% of our inner dialogue, inner monologue, are things that are negative. All the things we cannot do, all the things that we are either too weak or not smart enough, all the things that we know, yes, because God has promised us. What is God promised? I mean, now we even have the promise that Jesus made, seek and you shall find, right? Knock and it will be open to you, ask and it will be given you. So all these promises we have, but still we have all these different doubts. So we are, just like the Israelites were at that point, internally struggling among themselves, battling against themselves, okay? Being rebellious against God. And only a couple of them remained faithful, remained courageous. Just like that, we are, when we are facing struggle and we are facing difficulty in life. Who are you right now in this COVID crisis? Which percentage are you? Which one will it take over? Will you let be 83%? Or will you be the purified version 40 years later? Because if you are not, we are condemned to circle in our internal desert for the rest of our lives. So if you do not follow the promise of God, if you rebel against him, basically you are condemned to turn around in circles of lack of success, of the proverbial desert. Okay, so all these different fears that we have that are completely useless, that will lead to nothing, are there to make us smaller, to make us incapable of reaching out. Now, another thing happened in this story, which I also think is a case of human character. After God says, this is what's going to happen to you now because you did not obey, people go, oh, no. Yeah, you're right. No, we're going to go do that now. And Moses says, but the line is like this. Why are you disobeying the Lord's command? Because God says, now go away and you're going to be 40 years, having the time to think about this, getting all the commands nice and strengthened, become a people who are led by the law and obey the law and all these different things, because obviously this crowd I cannot put into the promised land. We have to shape them somehow, okay? So Moses said, why are you disobeying now the Lord's command? You're not ready. Obviously you're not ready. So if you did not go in the first time, why disobeying? Do not go up because the Lord is not with you. You will be defeated by your enemies. Of course, we know that people, they say, nevertheless, in their presumption, they went up towards the highest point in the hill country, though neither Moses nor the ark of the Lord's covenant moved from the camp. So the people there defeated them. All right, and you say, okay, where's the stubborn faith? Well, the stubborn faith here is what happens 40 years later. 40 years later, you could say the history could repeat, but no. 40 years later, something else happens. All this old descent is now gone. So all the children of the Israelites who were now brought up with the knowledge of God's power. They were kept in the desert, you know, all these different stories that you should definitely go to the Bible and read them, are happening. And God says to Moses, okay, now it's time that you go again to the promised land. And Moses knows he's not allowed to enter. And he's appointing Joshua, the son of Nun, to be the leader of now Israel nation. Now, something amazing happens here. All right. So now the people are getting 40 years ready for this. They are focused and they have Joshua as the leader. Joshua is an incredible character. Joshua, did you know that Joshua, the word in Hebrew is Yeshua? So he's pretty much Jesus. Okay. So he's the precursor of Jesus, leading the people into the promised land. All right, so this is a physical promised land. And when Jesus comes, he leads us into our spiritual promised land. But something happens there already in Deuteronomy that Moses speaks to Joshua and to the people. He says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. Did the giants go away? No. Probably even more people are living there now. What changed? People changed. Their hearts changed. Their focus changed. Okay? Remember, the first thing to have success, you have to decide you're going to do it. You have to believe you're going to do it. And now Joshua steps up. And I want us all to go to Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. It says like this. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Okay? The battle cry of Israelites is Rak Kazak Amatz. Rak Kazak Amatz. This is be strong, be courageous. Rak Kazak Amatz. So this is the promise of stubborn, of obstinate, of people facing fear straight into the eyes, of people facing challenge straight ahead and saying no. What is there is just not what is reality. We choose to see with God's eyes, with God's promise. Rak Kazak Amatz. Okay? I will actually put it later on in the message so you know how it is spelled. And this is the battle cry. This is the battle cry of stubborn faith. So what does Rak Kazak Amatz mean? It means that God is always with us. Remember of all the promises we talked about. It reminds us that no matter how hard it seems, God will go ahead of us and he will take care of our enemies. So no matter what the situation you're in right now, remind yourself, Rak Kazak Amatz. God is with you. God is with us. He will go ahead. Did Israelites conquer the promised land? Yes. It was there to possess. Okay? So whatever it is that you spiritually are seeking, whatever trouble that you're having right now, that is not your portion. Your portion is the promise that God has made, especially the one that he made through Jesus Christ. Yes, Dr. Wilbert Mutoko says, Rak Kazak Amatz means strong and courageous. It is being tenacious and zealous in heart. We can face the enemy without shrinking back and covering. No matter what our struggle, we do not have to face it alone. Rak Kazak Amatz. Remember that. Remember the stubborn faith, which is really stubborn faith to others, but to us, it's a fact, it's a knowledge. So we have to remind ourselves. The Bible is full of reminders and signs to remind ourselves what God did and every promise that he fulfilled. So in Matthew, remember the promise of Joshua 1.9 again. Be strong, be courageous. And then what does Jesus say? Okay. Jesus says, I have command, and surely I am with you always, even to the end of the age. He repeats that. He repeats the promise of Rak Kazak Amatz. He's with us always until the end of the age. Did he go on holiday? No. So what is stopping us? Remember, what is stopping us is controlling the crowd in our heads, is controlling the spiritual battle that begins really in our head. Did anybody attack Israelites before they went to the promised land? Did they have nations there at the border launching grenades or doing something bad? No. It was all their imagination. Most of our battles, it is our imagination. It is our own fears. So when you remember Rak, Kazak, Amat, take away that fear and you focus on God's promise. Remember, do not falter, do not doubt, do not grumble. Stand tall and trust in the Lord. So this, I hope that you got the message of the story of how stubborn faith can lead us all into victory. And it is based completely on God's promise. And it is taking exactly what is already rightfully ours. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. May God bless you all. Have a good night.